Hey there, folks. Welcome to another deep dive into the state of our world. It's 2025 and things aren't looking so hot. The global landscape is more turbulent than ever. The world is grappling with some serious issues, from climate change wreaking havoc on our environment to economic crises that seem to have no end in sight. We're talking about a perfect storm of economic uncertainty and global tension. Stock markets are crashing and news headlines are filled with doom and gloom. It's enough to make you want to crawl under a rock and just stay there. The stress is palpable and it's affecting everyone. The global economy is in a fragile state. Growth is sluggish and consumer confidence is at an all-time low. It's way below what we were seeing before the pandemic. Cities that once bustled with activity now feel like ghost towns. Remember those good old days? Yeah, me neither. It feels like a distant memory, almost like a different world altogether. So, what's causing all this chaos? Why does it feel like everything is spiraling out of control? Buckle up, Buttercup, because it's a bumpy ride. We're in for a wild journey through a myriad of crises. We've got geopolitical conflicts flaring up like a dumpster fire. Protests are turning violent and conflict zones are expanding. The Middle East is a powder keg. Trade tensions are simmering, threatening to boil over at any moment. And economic policies are shifting like the sands in a desert. Governments are scrambling to find solutions, but stability seems elusive. It's enough to make you wonder, are we heading for a global meltdown? The signs are all around us, from melting ice caps to distressed financial markets. Well, maybe not a full-blown meltdown, but things are definitely heating up. The pressure is on and it's only getting more intense. So, let's unpack this mess, shall we? We'll break down the key factors contributing to this global turmoil and explore potential paths forward. The Middle East, am I right? Always a delightful vacation destination, you said no one ever. This region, with its rich history and cultural significance, has been a focal point of global attention for decades. From ancient civilizations to modern-day conflicts, the Middle East has always been a land of contrasts and complexities. It's a region perpetually on the brink of, well, something. Whether it's political upheaval, social unrest, or economic challenges, there's always a storm brewing. The intricate web of alliances and rivalries makes it a hotbed of activity, and the stakes are always high, and 2025 is no exception. This year has brought its own set of challenges and uncertainties. The geopolitical landscape is as volatile as ever, with new alliances forming and old ones breaking apart. The world watches with bated breath, hoping for stability, but preparing for the worst. The conflict, the one that never seems to end, has flared up again. It's a tragic cycle of violence and retaliation with no clear end in sight. The human cost is staggering, and the impact on the region's infrastructure and economy is devastating. This time it's spread like a bad rash. The violence has escalated, drawing in neighboring countries and creating a ripple effect that threatens to destabilize the entire region. The international community is scrambling to respond, but solutions are elusive. It's gone beyond Gaza, engulfing Yemen, Lebanon, and even Iran. The conflict zones are expanding, and the humanitarian crisis is worsening. Millions of people are displaced, and the prospects for peace seem more distant than ever. It's like a geopolitical game of whack-a-mole, except the moles are armed and dangerous. Every time one conflict is addressed, another one pops up, creating a never-ending cycle of violence and instability. The challenges are immense, and the solutions are complex. This latest round of fighting is causing all sorts of headaches. Governments are struggling to maintain control, and the civilian population is bearing the brunt of the violence. The international community is calling for ceasefires and negotiations, but progress is slow. Commercial ships are being attacked, supply chains are disrupted. The economic impact is being felt worldwide, as vital trade routes are threatened and global markets react to the uncertainty. The cost of goods is rising, and businesses are facing unprecedented challenges. And shipping costs are skyrocketing. The increased risk and instability in the region are driving up prices, and consumers around the world are feeling the pinch. The global economy is interconnected, and the ripple effects of the conflict are far-reaching. It's like trying to order a pizza during a blizzard. The logistical challenges are immense, and the delays and disruptions are causing frustration and hardship. Businesses are adapting, but the situation remains precarious. And then there's the oil. Oh, the oil. The Middle East sits on a sea of the stuff. It's a vital resource that powers the global economy, and any disruption in supply can have significant consequences. The stakes are incredibly high, and the world is watching closely. The Middle East sits on a sea of the stuff. The region's oil reserves are vast, and the control of these resources is a major factor in the ongoing conflicts. The competition for control and influence is fierce, and the implications are global. And with the conflict raging, there's a real danger that OPEC, those oil-producing bigwigs, might just decide to cut production. Such a move could send shockwaves through the global economy, driving up prices and creating shortages. The balance is delicate, and the decisions made in the coming months will be critical. Remember the 1970s oil crisis, the long lines, the rationing, the economic turmoil? It was a time of great uncertainty and hardship, and the memories of those days still linger. The parallels to today's situation are striking, and the lessons of the past are more relevant than ever. Yeah, those were fun times. The world was grappling with an energy crisis, and the impact was felt in every corner of the globe. The challenges were immense, and the solutions were hard to come by. The echoes of that era are being felt today, as the world faces similar uncertainties. Long lines at gas stations, sky-high prices, and everyone wearing bell-bottoms. It was a unique time in history, marked by both challenges and cultural shifts. The fashion may have changed, but the underlying issues remain strikingly similar. Let's hope history doesn't repeat itself. The world is watching, and the stakes are incredibly high. The decisions made today will shape the future, and the hope is for a path to peace and stability. The challenges are immense, but so are the opportunities for change. As if the Middle East wasn't enough, we've got other conflicts brewing around the world. Ukraine is still a hotbed of tension, and let's not forget about the various simmering disputes in Africa and Asia. These conflicts, no matter where they occur, have a nasty habit of spilling across borders. They disrupt trade, displace populations, and create a breeding ground for extremism. It's like a domino effect, with each falling domino pushing us closer to the edge. So, how's the global economy holding up amidst all this chaos? The short answer is, not great, not terrible, it's complicated. The good news is that some regions are doing okay. South Asia is booming, China is chugging along, and the US, despite its best efforts to shoot itself in the foot, is still a major economic player. The bad news is that other regions are struggling. Europe is facing an energy crisis. Latin America is battling inflation. And Africa, well, Africa is facing a whole host of challenges. It's a mixed bag, folks. And the uncertainty is making investors nervous. They're like a herd of spooked gazelles ready to bolt at the first sign of trouble. Section 5, Trade Wars and Inflation Woes. Remember when we thought globalization would bring us all together in a harmonious love-in of free trade? Yeah, me neither. The idea was that open borders and free markets would lead to prosperity for all. But instead what we got was a tangled web of economic policies and national interests clashing at every turn. Turns out trade wars are way more fun, or at least more dramatic. Countries are now more focused on protecting their own industries and jobs, leading to a series of retaliatory measures that only escalate tensions further. Countries are slapping tariffs on each other's goods left and right. These tariffs are essentially taxes on imports, making foreign goods more expensive and less attractive to consumers. But the real kicker is that these costs often get passed down to the everyday consumer. It's like a game of economic chicken, and nobody wants to blink first. Each country is waiting for the other to back down, but in the meantime, businesses and consumers are caught in the crossfire. The result? Higher prices for consumers, disrupted supply chains, and a whole lot of bad blood. Companies struggle to get the materials they need, leading to production delays and empty store shelves. And if trade wars weren't bad enough, we've got inflation rearing its ugly head. Inflation is the rate at which the general level of prices for goods and services is rising, and subsequently purchasing power is falling. Prices are rising faster than a sourdough starter on a hot day. Wages are stagnant. This means that while everything costs more, people aren't earning more to keep up with these rising costs. And central banks are raising interest rates like it's going out of style. Higher interest rates are supposed to cool down the economy and bring inflation under control, but they also make borrowing more expensive. It's a recipe for economic disaster. Higher borrowing costs can lead to reduced spending and investment, potentially slowing down economic growth and leading to a recession. The combination of trade wars and inflation creates a volatile economic environment that is challenging for everyone. Section 6, drowning in debt. Remember all that money governments borrowed to prop up their economies during the pandemic? Well, it's time to pay the piper. Many countries, especially developing economies, are drowning in debt. They're like college students who took out too many loans. They're stuck in a vicious cycle of borrowing more money just to pay off the interest on their existing debt. This debt crisis is a ticking time bomb. If it explodes, it could send shockwaves through the global economy. Section 7. Economic nationalism on the rise. Remember the good old days when countries cooperated with each other? Pepperidge Farm remembers. These days it's all about me first and screw everyone else. Economic nationalism is on the rise. Countries are hoarding resources, restricting trade and generally looking out for number one. It's like the world has turned into a giant game of Monopoly and everyone is trying to bankrupt each other. This inward-looking approach might seem appealing in the short term, but it's a recipe for disaster in the long run. We're all interconnected, folks. What happens in one part of the world affects us all. Section 8, the need for a plan. So what's the solution to all this mess? Well, if I had a simple answer, I'd be writing this from my private island in the Caribbean. But here's the thing, we need a plan, and not just any plan, a sustainable one. Governments need to get their act together. They need to stop spending money they don't have. They need to invest in education, infrastructure, and renewable energy. And they need to work together to address global challenges like climate change and pandemics. Section 9. Can we work together? The world is facing some serious challenges, but amidst the doom and gloom, there's a glimmer of hope. We've faced tough times before, and we've always come out stronger. The key is to work together. We need to put aside our differences and focus on what unites us. We need to remember that we're all in this together, so let's channel our inner Bob the Builder and get to work. We've got a world to fix.